Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Ending Child Poverty, Understanding the Child Tax Credit. And my name is Shimica Gaskins. I'm the Executive Director of the Children's Defense Fund California State Office. And I'm excited to be here today with all of you to talk about these historic changes for children and families. We are just a few days after tax day, but it's still a crucial time to talk about the impact the child tax credit and other income supports will have on families. And I'm excited to be here today with Jim Keddy from Youth Forward and Sabrina de Santiago from the Golden State Opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Shimica. As Shimica mentioned, I'm Jim Keddy with Youth Forward. We're an organization that works on youth organizing and advocacy on youth issues here locally in Sacramento, where we're based, and also in state policy. And like Shimica, we're very excited about this new move by the federal government to invest directly in families and to lift children out of poverty.
And I'm Sabrina de Santiago. I'm with Golden State Opportunity. We're an organization dedicated to helping Californians achieve financial stability by helping them get access to different tools. And we'll hear a little bit more about that today. We're also involved in state advocacy, and we hope that it'll be something that excites everybody. These are some great changes.
Thank you, Sabrina and Jim. And Sabrina, are we able to have Spanish translation instructions?
Sí, para aquellos, I'll switch over to Spanish, just for folks to make the announcement. I believe we are still working on the translation, though. It's looking to be para aquellos que se unen con nosotros en español y necesitan traducción, les pedimos una disculpa. Estamos teniendo un problema técnico. Resulta que la traductora se le ha fallado el internet y está intentando comunicarse por medio de su celular. Si hay alguna persona que requiere traducción, por favor, háganlo saber ahorita, porque yo puedo con todo gusto traducir para ustedes, todos menos mi presentación, y por eso, eso nos podemos comunicar más información después. Entonces, por favor, si necesita hacernos saber, puede hacer la pregunta en el Q&A, las dos bolitas que se ven como una conversación al fondo de su pantalla.
Thank you, Sabrina. We also want to give a very special thank you to our partners and the work and our sponsor organizations. In addition to Youth Forward and Golden State Opportunity, we want to thank the Alliance for Boys and Men of Color, as well as PICO California. And we're going to get started with an overview of what we'll talk about today. So I'll start with just giving a little clarity around the child tax credit, and then Sabrina will take us into making sense of the Golden State stimulus, the Cali Itc, and the Young Child Tax Credit and other supports. And then Jim will close us out with improving the policy and making it permanent. So I was reminded recently by a colleague of a quote by Nelson Mandela, in which he said, "There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children." And I think all of us, or many of us, still remain shocked and empowered by the fact that we still have so many children living in poverty, that we want to continue to make sure that we changed this trajectory. So even before the pandemic, children, particularly children of color and very young children, were the poorest Americans. More than 10 million American children, nearly 1 in 7, lived in poverty in 2019, and nearly 1 in 5 children of color were living in poverty. Almost half of all children living in poverty in America lived in extreme poverty. And since last May, it's estimated that an additional 2.5 million American children have fallen into poverty. We know that poverty hurts, that it has tremendous impacts. In 2019, the National Academy of Sciences provided a congressionally chartered report. And in that report, it found that the weight of the causal evidence does indeed indicate that income poverty itself causes negative child outcomes, especially when poverty occurs in childhood or persists throughout a large portion of childhood. And so we know the science is there, that income-related gaps in cognitive skills can be seen as early as 9 months, that poor children are often more likely to be hungry and less likely to have quality health coverage. Poor children are less likely to graduate from high school, and child poverty increases the risk of unemployment and adult poverty. And so Children's Defense Fund, nationally and here in California, have been fighting for over 4 decades to change this trajectory. And we've been putting out reports for years about what it really takes to lift the millions of children out of poverty now. And one of those things has always been making the child tax credit fully refundable, along with things such as expanding housing vouchers, increasing SNAP benefits, increasing the earned income tax credit, creating transitional jobs, raising the minimum wage, child care assistance, and more changes to child support benefits to benefit more children. So we're really excited to be in this place today after a year of a pandemic and understanding the impacts on communities, particularly communities of color, to be having not only just a conversation, but to see progress in making expanding the child tax credit and the American Rescue Plan itself, which is a $1.9 trillion economic stimulus package signed by President Biden in March 2011. This package is making millions of new children eligible and their families for benefit expansion, creating pathways to cut child poverty in half. And in addition to the child tax credit, we're seeing it has significant investments in the extension of SNAP benefit increases to the end of this year, the one-time direct stimulus payment of $1,400 per eligible adult and child recipient, the current unemployment insurance expansions through September of this year, the expanded earned income tax credit for workers without children, and the expanded child independent care tax credit and child care funding, along with rental assistance. So let's talk a little bit about the child tax credit. So the child tax credit was enacted in 1997. Taxpayers could claim a child tax credit of up to $2,000 per child under age 17. And families who owed little or no income tax could receive up to $1,400 of the balance as a refund check. Qualifying non-dependents included youth ages 17 to 18 and full-time college students 19 to 24 were eligible for the non-refundable tax credit for up to $500. But many families earned too little to receive the full tax credit. Families earning less than $2,500 annually were ineligible for the credit. And the value of this CTC increased with household earnings. So a single parent with 2 children earning between $2,500 and $30,000 annually received only a partial credit. Around 23 million children, so 1 in 3, didn't qualify for the full tax credit. So who was left behind? Over 50% of Black non-Hispanic children received a partial or no credit. 70% of children in families headed by single mothers did not receive a full credit, and 40% of children in families with young children were also left behind. 42% of children in rural areas did not receive the full credit. So we are really excited that the ARP is bringing transformational temporary changes to the CTC. What we will see with this new expansion is increased benefit levels. So children under 6 families are eligible for $3,600 maximum annual benefit. Children aged 6 to 17, a $3,000 maximum annual benefit. And this is specifically for the first time ever that teens who are 17 are being covered. It's fully available to children in the lowest income families. So if you make 0 earnings and up to $112,500 for unmarried filer or $150,000 for married filer, you can receive the credit. And it's going to be paid out in regular installments. So the IRS has been directed to pay out the benefit periodically. Now, what impact will it have? Well, calculations from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities estimates that approximately 4.1 million children under 18 will directly be lifted out of poverty. 1.1 million children will be lifted out of deep poverty. That's about, and of that 4.1, we're looking at potentially 1.2 million Black children and 1.7 million Latino children. 27 million children overall, whether currently living in poverty or not, will benefit in some way by this being fully expanded. And here in our home state of California, 3.5 million children could who were previously left out will be included. 7.8 million children under 18 will benefit from the expansion. It will lift about 550,000 children out of above the poverty line and move about 1.6 million children closer to the poverty line. So who qualifies? Well, we shouldn't have to say this, but if you have a child dependent, you qualify. And joint tax filers earning up to 150,000, and single head of households earning up to 112,500, and single filers up to 75,000 qualify for the full advanced periodic payment of the child tax credit. We'll talk a little bit more later about who will be left out under the current law. But most important, families with cash benefit that have no income at all can receive the cash benefit. Do I need to file a tax return? Yes, you do, and encourage folks to do so. Even though the tax deadline has passed, there is still time to file for an extension till October 15th. In order to calculate the tax credit, the IRS will use your returns. For individual and joint filers that have not filed their 2019 or 2020 taxes, you will have to file to return to receive the credit. It's going to be really critical for the IRS and the local and community organizations to help us continue to get the word out about the tax credit, to make sure that folks who are making, even if they don't have income, that they know that they're eligible for these benefits. How much will I get? So as we mentioned before, it depends on your adjusted gross income filed on your tax returns, but you could get up to $3,600 per child under 6 years old, and up to $3,000 per child age 6 to 17. For example, if your income is less than $75,000 and you have one child younger than 6, you will qualify for the full $3,600. Now, if you are still at a higher income, that you are still able to claim the credit at $2,000 per child for the tax credit, making up to, if folks with incomes up to $200,000 for single filers, and then $400,000 for married joint filers. And how will the IRS send me this money? Well, if they have your bank account already, you shall get it through a direct deposit. If you receive Social Security benefits like SSI or SSDI, you might receive the payments via a direct or express debit card. I think most important though, the new changes allow for advanced periodic payments. So you can opt out to have a lump sum at tax time, but we know that having periodic payments helps families meet their daily and monthly living expenses. And so this is the first time that the IRS will be able to create this option of periodic payments through an online system to make sure that folks are able to get these payments over time in advance of their 2021 taxes through monthly payments. So when will I get the payment? Well, once the IRS which is slated to have, if you filed your tax returns, and hopefully they will have an online portal up, 2 portals, one similar to for the stimulus payment for those families low-income families, to make sure that they reach them. But you could see a payment as early as July 15th. And then thereafter, there will be periodic payments of $300 to $250, depending on where you fall. What if my child has split custody? The parent with primary custody will receive the credit, and the child must live with the caregiver at least 6 months of the year. If a child splits the time equally between 2 parents, the one with the higher adjusted gross income may claim the child, and it's likely that the advanced periodic payments will go to the parent claiming the child. And this is important not only for couples who split custody, but also for families who the child may spend half the year with a grandparent or other care relative. Will the CETC impact other benefits? No. Thankfully, the child tax credit does not impact any other federally funded benefit programs such as SNAP. Tax credits do not count against your earned income. And then finally, again, the work that we still need to continue to do is thinking about and talking about who is left out, even this expansion. So due to the 2017 the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, children must have a Social Security number to receive the federal tax credit. So therefore, children with I-10s do not qualify. And it's estimated that that's about 1.1 million children nationwide. And so making a one-year expansion permanent is part of our continued goal to ensure that this temporary expansion becomes permanent law, and that the tax credit benefits all children, and that we ensure that the payments will be able to follow the child. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sabrina.
Thank you. Bear with me, folks, while we transition to share my screen. Thank you all. So as I mentioned, we're going to cover a little bit about what the different credits are, who qualifies, and of course, reiterate some of the things you need to do to make sure you get this money. We'll also cover a little bit about how to estimate your credits. I think a lot of folks sometimes have questions about how much that actually means for you. And I'll be honest, when folks see this number, it can be really motivated, because I know we could all use all the money that we have available to us, especially this year. So what's a tax credit and how does it work? A tax credit is a reduction in the amount of taxes you owe, and some credits are refundable. So if you owe $0 in taxes, these credits are your refund. For example, if you owe $350 on your taxes and you qualify for the $1,000 young child tax credit, you could get back $650. And as Shimica covered, tax credits help more than just your wallet. Research around the EITC has found that families that get the EITC have babies who are healthier, newborns who weigh more, have a lower mortality rate, so less likely to die, and mothers also have a healthier pregnancy and a better recovery. Kids stay in school longer and do better on tests. And of course, then college is an option, because the kids have stayed in school longer and done better on tests, but also you have more money to help pay for it. And this is no surprise to everybody. Having more of those dollars gives you the ability to provide more for your families. So who qualifies for the Cali Itc? The Cali Itc is a California Earned Income Tax Credit, and the part here to important is that you need to earn less than $30,000 regardless of the number of dependents that you have. You need to have lived in California for more than half the year and be over 18. A small exception. You can be under 18 if you have children, and we'll cover a little bit more about that later. So what's the maximum Cali Itc? The maximum Cali Itc for somebody with 3 or more children is $3,027. If you have 2 qualifying children, it's $2,691. For 1 child, it's $1,626. And if you're an adult with no children, then your rebate can be up to $243. There's also the young child tax credit. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. If you have a child under the age of 6, you're eligible for an additional $1,000 credit for the entire household. It's not, unfortunately, $1,000 per child. We'll fight to get it there. We think raising a child a year costs a lot more than $1,000, but for right now, it's $1,000 per household. And then what's new in the tax year for California? You'll notice when I said who's eligible, I did not say that you need to have a Social Security number. So a tax filer with an I-10, children or the adults, including undocumented workers, can qualify for both the Cali Itc and the young child tax credit. I'll note that this is just for the California credits. If you're also filing and claiming the federal EITC and the federal child tax credit, those have different rules. I also want to highlight the Golden State stimulus. We've been hearing a lot about this. There's the new announcement that the governor made recently. That hasn't been finalized yet. So I'm going to talk about the money that's actually available to folks now. We'll be happy to send more information to folks once we have some idea of what actually passes and what's going to be real. But to qualify for the Cali Itc, you could get a payment of $600 or $1,200. And you have to do a couple of things. You have to file your taxes. You'll notice that is a trend that we are going to repeat here today. And you either have to be a Cali ITC recipient, so some of those things that I mentioned earlier, and then an ITIN filer, or excuse me, an ITIN filer who made $75,000 or less for your California adjusted gross income. And I say the California adjusted gross income because there are more deductions in California that folks can take. So if you made $76,000 in your income, go ahead and make sure you're calculating your adjusted gross income because you may still qualify. For the Golden State stimulus, folks ask, what's the difference between the $600 and the $1,200? Well, that is the $1,200 is for ITIN filers who are also Cali ITC recipients, because those folks have been so left out of federal support that the state of California wants to say, let's do something to help you. To do this money will come automatically to you if you filed your 2020 taxes. It is taking about 45 to 60 days for the payments to be processed. So it's going to take them a while. I would expect it's a little bit longer than that. The 45 days is for folks who have done direct deposit. The 60 days is for folks who are expecting a check. And so you see, I didn't lie. How do you claim these credits? You must file your taxes, but don't worry, because we have some help that we can share with you. I'm going to take you to our website just to share a little bit more about some of the resources. Here we go. So you can see it's our website, caliitcforme.org. And there's a couple of things. I want to walk you through the calculator so you can see about how much you might be eligible for in terms of the Cali ITC and the Young Child Tax Credit. It also includes the federal tax credit. So you can pick your language. It comes in 13 different languages. Our entire website is available in all of those languages. But let's say that my husband and I earned $24,000 this year. We are married filing jointly. I want to share that if you are married, you must file jointly in order to claim the Cali ITC and the Young Child Tax Credit. Otherwise, you do not qualify. I know that's something, an area for us to work on, and trust me, we've got it on our to-do list. And we've got one child. Then here it's asking you about your income in 2020 versus 2019. We're going to put in the same amount. Then you check a couple boxes. We are US citizens. We lived in the US for more than 6 months. We lived in California for more than 6 months. I am way over 18. I am not claimed on anybody's. We did not have investment income. So this is one of the other limitations for the Cali ITC, excuse me, for the federal EITC. You should not have had more than $3,800 worth of investment income. That is obviously because it's calculated toward your total income. And then we have a child under 6. Our daughter is only 2. So we're going to estimate our credit. And you can see here from the Cali ITC, you got $147 for the young child tax credit, $1,000, and from the federal tax credit, $3,526. These are estimates. You still need to file your taxes to be able to claim them. But maybe you're saying, how do I file my taxes? How do I get some help? Most years, we would be pushing you to go to one of the VITA sites in person. This year with COVID, there's been a lot of limitations on how many appointment sites or drop-offs that folks can do. So the real effort right now is to push you, if you're comfortable, to use file for free on your own or get help from an IRS trained volunteer. If you click this link, it will take you to the IRS website. But if you go to this link here, file with help from an IRS trained volunteer, it's going to take you to one of our partners. It's called getyourrefund.org. And this is an official site. This is partnered with the IRS. So it will help you. What happens with this process is you will be asked a few questions. Then you're going to get a volunteer assigned to you virtually. The volunteer, you'll upload your forms. The volunteer is going to review your forms, draft your taxes, and then come back and set up an appointment with you via video or telephone to talk to you about your results. So if you feel like you need a little bit more help, this is a good option for you. And you can see that they also have it in Spanish. So I just wanted to show folks how easy that was to get through. And I always have the backup slides here in case we need to do a little work. That is my contact information. We'll also be able to send that out. So if folks have other questions. That is all for me. Jim, tossing it over to you.
Great, thank you, Sabrina. I just want to say what a fantastic, useful website you have. I have looked at your website, but I haven't ever seen it used in action. And that's really a terrific place where so much information is all together. So what we wanted to do for the remainder of this webinar is to give you a little bit of a sense for what's next in terms of advocacy around these really important expansions, and then also take your questions and answers. So as Shimica noted at the beginning of our conversation, what we're witnessing and right now, I think, is a very significant move on the part of the federal government to act on child poverty in a way I don't think we've seen since the war on poverty in the mid and late 1960s or the New Deal. And of course, what we saw with the election of President Biden, the American Rescue Plan, is something that is temporary. So the expansion of the child tax credit, the expansion of the federal EITC is part of that package of legislation in the American Rescue Plan. And it does come to an end next year. So of course, those of us working on kids issues, we would all love to see that continued, and what can we do? So our understanding is that the Biden administration is currently working on the infrastructure package. And then once that reaches a vote and is put into law, they will then move on to the American Family Plan, which is another big set of legislation and policies to support families around health coverage and housing. And within that, the Biden administration has included the goal of extending the child tax credit expansion to 2025 and to making the EITC, the federal EITC expansion, permanent. So of course, we don't know whether the Biden administration will succeed in winning those advances. And what we want to do is begin a conversation among advocates in California about what can we do to make sure that our elected representatives at the federal level know that this is something we care about, that we would like to see continue. So that's something we'll be coming back to you and having that conversation in the next few months as we see the Biden administration move the American Family Plan package forward. And as we kind of learn more about what the politics are around it and where we can be most relevant. But before I kind of wrap up that section, I do want to ask Sabrina to share with us what she is seeing at the federal level. Sabrina is someone who has worked in federal policy and follows this at a much closer level, certainly, than I do. And as you saw in her presentation, she's just a tremendous resource on all of this. So.
Well, Jim, no, he covered all the finer points. There's a couple of things I will share is that I think it's really important right now for folks to be doing a couple of things. Is one, getting the word out about the CTC, because if more people are getting it, it's going to be harder for them to take it back away from us, right? They're gonna have the successes, and people will see what kind of a difference that makes in their lives. And that's going to be a really powerful tool. So please get the word out to your friends, to your families, to, now that the world is opening back up, be safe. But, if you're talking to your neighbor, if you're going to community meetings, raise this up. We'll be sharing more materials so that you can help us get the word out in your communities. Two is that I really encourage folks to write into your members. If you want help with that, please let us know. We're happy to help connect you all. But believe it or not, I know politicians get a really bad rap, but they listen. When I was working in DC for members and for senators, we actually, at the end of the week, would tell them, we got 355 calls in favor of this, or 120 calls against that. We got 1,200 letters supporting this. So when you guys speak up, it does matter. People do take that into account. Don't think that, oh, they're so disconnected, they don't care. Ask them to do what you need them to do for your family. Share with them the details of how this is going to make an impact for you, and you're going to be able to get through with them. I think the point to make with them is that this needs to be something that's easy to use, right? The CTC, but for the other credits, especially the EITC expansion, I didn't cover that too much because that's not going to take effect until next year. But next year, it's going to be just as important to still file your taxes because there's a more generous EITC coming. But I think share with them also that you want them to make it as generous as possible, right? We need to tell them that this money makes a difference. Remind them that for your family budget, $100 is a big thing. $200 is like a significant difference. I don't know about you all, but like I grew up, you got your clothes on when school started, and then you got some gifts at Christmas. But that's not the only times families have cost. You need to replace those shoes on the regular basis. So use these kinds of details when you're communicating with folks. And then, we'll engage with you in the fall when stuff starts moving. I really don't think we're going to see any action, as Jim mentioned, before the summer, because there's just a lot on Congress's plate right now. But let's not let up the steam, right? Let's keep our foot on the pedal and hold them accountable. That's our job as their constituents. So thanks, Jim, for that opportunity.
Yeah. Just one point that Sabrina made about the need to spread awareness of this. I think the advantage we have right now is that these cash payments to families with children will start this summer. So rather than waiting until tax season when in the past, families would claim these credits, and now it's going to be showing up in your bank account or in your mailbox. So the more we can raise awareness that this is not permanent, this is temporary, and it's something, if it's helping us, we need to fight for it. I think very important. And I just am keeping in mind too, for how many families in the state that these new dollars will help them with rent. I think one of the things that drives child poverty in California is our high cost of housing. And certainly with growing numbers of families who are homeless, these dollars are going to help keep folks housed. And then the last point I wanted to make around the fight to win this and make it better, to make it more inclusive, is what we saw with the Affordable Care Act. So you may recall that when President Obama and Congress put in place the Affordable Care Act, California had a very aggressive enrollment strategy with a lot of high visibility of the ACA. And as a result, California helped drive enrollment across the country. And once you have more folks with a benefit, it's much harder to take away. So the more visible it is, the more people who benefit, the more we talk about it, the greater the chance we'll have of holding on to it. Okay, so we're going to move on to questions and answers now. We appreciate everybody who's been putting stuff into the Q&A. And this first question is from Shang Veng, and it's in the presentation. It stated that families who do not have any income also qualify, but need to file their taxes in order to receive the payment. How does this work if families do not have an income to file taxes, if they were just on government assistance programs like Cash Aid and CalFresh? So I'm going to ask Sabrina, would you like to answer that one?
So you should still file your taxes. I know the traditional answer was always, if you don't make enough, don't file. That's changed really in the last couple of years because we want to make sure. You could also be leaving money on the table for the different credits, right? You could be still getting a refund. And I always like to remind folks that lots of things count as earned income. You won't get a 1099 form unless you make more than $600 from an individual employer, but things like if you've been babysitting regularly for somebody, that counts. Did you have, a short-term seasonal job? Geez, when I was in college, I worked for like the IRS for a week processing checks. I didn't get a 1099 from them because I think I got paid like $10 an hour back then with whatever the minimum wage was. But so those little things, those count. And if you're self-employed, a lot of folks think that, hey, my side business doesn't count. Yes, it does. And you should always file if you have a side business, because there, especially when you're an entrepreneur, you want to make sure that you're getting back all the credits you earn. You can write off a lot of those things. For the more complicated ones, let us know. We can help put you in touch with the VITA sites and the volunteers. But yes, do you do hair on the side? That's a job, and you can report that as part of your income. Have you, maybe you did just Uber for like a week. You were like, that's not for me. That's still income. That's still something that you can report. So we always advise people to really take a look at how much you're earning, because there might be things that you have earned income, and all you need is $1 of earned income to be able to claim some of these credits. But more importantly, you need to file it to get in line for the CTC. Like I think about it as getting in line. Like the IRS won't know to get to me if I'm not filing my taxes. And then let's be honest, they're backlogged. It's going to take them extra long to find you if you don't file your taxes. So maybe you won't be looking at getting some money until November, October, who knows how long that's going to take. So I really can't say it enough. File your taxes. If you need help, let us know.
Yeah.
I
So,
was just gonna, oh, they-
Go ahead,
they-
Shimica.
yeah, oh no, I was just gonna add, I think Sabrina did such an excellent job outlining all of those things, but I think that the resource that she shared on the getyourrefund.org on the website is a good place for you to go. That can be really helpful. And that's why it's also critical, even within our own state, that we continue to push and advocate for funding for VITA sites and opportunities to provide free services, so that even if you are on benefits, you don't have money to, and you think, because most people think it costs to file, I don't know how to do it, I need support. There are ways to be able to have support in that are free.
Before I forget, folks who got CalWORKs, you should still get a Golden State grant. That is different than the Golden State stimulus, but it will come directly from CalWORKs through the program. Those should start going out now. If you're on SSI or SSDI, then you should be also getting a payment, but that's going to take a little bit longer because the Social Security Administration is really backlogged and the state's trying to figure out how to make that work.
so we have a related question in the chat, which is, what if you already did your taxes? Will your taxes, how do you adjust them, or what do you do if you already did it?
So if you already did your taxes, and if you did it with like a software, if you do it with a preparer, they'll capture a lot of these things automatically. So like the Cali Itc, the Golden State stimulus will be processed on the back end. If you have a question about your California return, you can look on line 75 and figure out if you claimed, if the Cali Itc was claimed for you, if somebody prepared your taxes. And then you can go to the calculator. We've had a couple of folks who are like, I'm not sure if it's right. Like maybe I'm supposed to get more money. You can try and use the calculator to see if it's right. And if it's not right, you can still go to a VITA site and they can help you amend your return. They can also help you file for up to the past 3 years. So you may have money that you were owed from past years if you didn't file that you could still get back now. Otherwise, I think for the CTC, you're sort of getting in the queue. The IRS is going to have your data. If for the Golden State stimulus, the FTB, the state version of IRS, is going to have your data. So they'll bring that to you automatically. Like I said, it's going to take about 45 to 60 days. I'd guess closer to like 60 to 75 days. And unfortunately right now, there's no way to check to see if you should have gotten your refund with the California FTB. We've asked for it. I'll let you know if that changes, but we'll keep pushing for it, of course.
Sabrina, when you were referring to the calculator, where does one find the calculator?
It's on our website. It's Cali Itc for me, the number 4.org. What I'll ask is that when you do a follow-up email, we drop the link in there so that folks have access to that.
Thank you. Okay. Here's another question from Brooke. I support undocumented parents in my work. Do you have tips on how to support this community to file their taxes? So Shimica or Sabrina, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been doing a lot around trying to make sure that the information is pushed out in multiple languages, that we're sharing with different cross-sector partners. For instance, a lot of the DCFFs and making sure social workers have handouts to pass out to folks so that they know in communities where there are a high immigrant populations. And so we've just been doing a lot to encourage folks that it's okay, that you've already paid into this system. And so this is an opportunity to make sure that you're getting what you're owed. And so we're working with a lot of our immigrant rights partners to try and make sure that that message is out there so that people feel comfortable filing, because that's one of the other issues based on the last administration that people were really scared about.
Okay.
But we can also link to those in our follow-up email too as well.
Great. Thank you, Shimica. Another question, when is the last day to file your taxes?
That's a good one. You know, my understanding is that if you filed your for amendment, it'll be October 15th, I believe. If you ask for the amendment, and it's not too late to file and ask for, I mean, sorry, not an amendment, an extension. Sorry, thank you. And then, but as soon as possible, because the deadline has passed. So if you do owe, you will start incurring penalties. And so you want to make sure that you file as soon as possible, because the 17th was the official deadline, I believe.
Just to clarify that, Shimica, so it is possible to file past the deadline. You may incur interest, but you in fact can file your taxes even though the May 17th deadline has passed.
That's right.
Okay, oh, interesting. Yeah, so with the amount of dollars at stake here, that'd be totally wow,
worth it. Exactly.
That's a big message, which is even if you miss the May 17th deadline, you can still file.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I always live in fear of that deadline. So
I think we all do. A lot of people do. So, or even intimidated by asking for the extension. The extension is really easy. So don't be intimidated by that either. And if you need help to be able to go to one of the Vita sites or websites to help you, just put that extension in, and then you'll have the October deadline.
Okay, another question. Can parents with a child under CPS custody qualify for the California EITC?
You know, that is a really good question. And my memory is confused, so I don't want to give bad information. Can I get someone's, Shimica, I'm not sure if you know, but otherwise I'll have to follow up, and I apologize for that. I think there's been some changes recently, and that's just what I want to confirm.
I think that's, yes, I think that's a good idea, Sabrina. I think we can follow up and make sure. I'm thinking about the federal, where I know children in foster care are qualifying children, but I think the nuance of the child being in custody, I think we might want to clarify on that for sure.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, I made a note of the question, and Sean will follow up with you. I'll make sure that we get your email and do that follow-up. Thank you for the question. Okay, some other questions. Can you share some key data figures? Do we know how many families have been able to claim these credits in California? And/or when would those figures be available?
Sure, we get an update on the Cali Itc. So far this year, I want to see the total number here, 3.164 million households. We don't have numbers on individuals because the filing unit is the household, have filed. That is up 10% from last year, where we had at this point in the tax filing season, 2.88 million. And we know that last year, over 3 million families claimed it. It means to the state several $1 billion worth of direct payments. Depends how you slice it with the EITC and the federal EITC and the Cali Itc, but it's several million families. When you look at both the young child tax credit, the EITC, the child tax credit, the federal child tax credit, and the Cali Itc, over 6 million households in California qualify for some version or another.
Wow, that's a significant number of people. Yeah, much bigger than I would have thought. We have another question, and this is, I think this occurred to me as I was watching the slides, you know, the tendency of government to create multiple programs with multiple rules and multiple hoops one has to jump through in order to access resources. So this was a question for Mary Jane. Is there a simple algorithm that can be used as an infographic to help parents navigate?
I will say I've seen a lot of like the calculators and news reports, and in addition to what Sabrina offered. But I don't know. I think it depends on knowing there's so many pieces. I think it's best to go to like a really reputable website. We'll make sure we share those out. There's some quick calculators on that I've seen across the internet, but I think it's best to probably try and either stick to the IRS guidance and then also the really reputable websites that we can help share for. Yeah, unfortunately, I think because it's so nuanced that it's a little bit harder to sort of put in an infographic. But Sabrina, you share. What do you think?
No, that's right on. I mean, it depends a lot on your family and your household makeup and your income. For most folks, the average Cali Itc, if you're factoring in families and people who have no children, is about $200. For the state, so that's a Cali Itc. The federal EITC, that one is really tricky to estimate because there's a phase out that's more complicated than I often see, I would say most folks, it's at least a couple $100. That's probably as comfortable as I am generalizing, but yeah, probably at least a couple $100 for most folks.
Okay. So the next question has to do with getting the word out. And we had a question from Catherine about if you are on social media and will you be posting ads about the child tax credit expansion and these other expansions of supports for families, Golden State stimulus, because certainly if, as we all know, we can repost and use social media to reach people in a way that we weren't able to do in the past. So how can people best access you in your social media world?
We're happy to send it out. And I think there's been, I know, United Ways of California, Golden State Opportunity. So many of our partners have been really aggressively putting out information on their social media channels because we want to make sure, I mean, every year we're doing this on the Cali Itc anyway, but even most importantly this year to really make people aware of the federal expansion. So we'll continue to do that. We'll make sure we share that all the handles in the follow-up materials. And then I just think, the reason we wanted to come together to talk about this, and thankfully our partners at PICO and the Alliance for Boys and Men of Color, is because so many of us are working with families who could benefit from this. And so just continuing to, share out this recording when we have it. I know people might not watch it, but maybe they will. And I think that as we continue to push for the permanency of this and next year, like we will be very clear about making sure that we're doing that on all our social and coming together to do that, to make sure that people as one voice that we're asking for this permanent tax credit. So.
Absolutely. Yes. But CDF, United Way, they're all kinds of partners that you all want to follow. I will say we also have a lot of digital flyers on our website that are super useful. We used to hand them out, I feel like it's in olden days before pre-COVID, but they're also available digitally. They're really useful because it's got all the information sort of in one page. I will be I post those to my family, my extended family especially. When they're available again, if folks ever want some, please let us know. We'll send you some because we want to get the word out as far and wide as possible. I'm happy to drop some in the mail for you if anybody wants to get the word out.
Great, thank you, Sabrina. I'm having a flashback to my early years in organizing when we had one of those crank ditto machines, and it was before copiers, and there was this particular chemical smell to it. So
I loved the smell. I loved that smell. I think all the kids in my class were like,
yes.
childhood flashbacks of pre-technology. So I think that is all the questions that we have to cover. And I just wanted to say how fortunate we are to have Shimica and Sabrina as leaders in our state, and the work that their organizations do, and how much knowledge they have all about all of these very intricate policies and all these ways in which families have to navigate these systems in order to access resources. But it's so terrific that we have you. Yeah, and as we noted earlier, we will be sending an email out with links here to the recording, to websites, and then I have a pretty good feeling we're going to be doing this again, or some versions of this, as we start to look at how to make it permanent and how to make it better and more inclusive of more families and more children. So I'll just turn it back over to Shimica and Sabrina for any closing thoughts.
No, thank you. Thank you for your kind words, Jim. We know that you have been such a champion for children, and just your grace and humbleness about that is always admiring, because you are always the one that's bringing us together and continuing the fight, and really keeping your eye and pulse on what's needed. So thank you for bringing us together and having the opportunity to share with all our networks, and so that we can make sure that we get this information out and that people sign up. You know, it's really historic, as you said, and we just want to make sure that we can continue to push for what we know families need. So thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all today.
I'll just like times two. Really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this. For folks on the call, Jim and Shimica, they're leading the work on outreach to youth and to child tax credit. So they are amazing. We're happy to be here and support and put us to work. That's always what I say.
Well, thank you. And thank you for everyone for joining today. It's so great to be able to see folks in the chat and to be here. And we will definitely be in touch with our follow-up email and to share this information out.